A perfect marriage of images and music remains a mystery. Well, like everything else in movies, it begins with a little inspiration.
Sometimes I'll hear things in my head, and literally I will jot while I'm watching the film for the first time. It's rare. It's rare that anything I jot down actually ends up being what I use. But that's usually the way I do it. I'll start to hear things and I'll write them down. Then I'll go watch a film again once or twice by myself. And then I'll literally, in this room, start to write specific pieces for specific pieces of the film. So that's my process. I call it, sort of writing some music and seeing what sticks.
When you're writing for movies, once you've developed your palette and your cloth, and you're in sync with the director of the style and everything's kind of working, the picture tells you what to write. That's how it works for me. It tells me, it's almost like a rejection mode. If I do something and write something and I see it against picture, it'll almost, that's kind of a little corny, or that comes out, or it's too much. It's all just sitting with it for a little while. I usually watch the picture a few times, get a sense of it, and then I go to my piano. I don't even come in here and put anything in to synthestrate for the director until I've got a melody line on paper, some chords, and I know where I'm going.
Once they have an idea for a piece of music, today's film composers benefit from amazing tools that help them turn those ideas into reality.
I have on my computer at my fingertips a virtual orchestra. And you can see it's a little hard to read, but it's grouped strings, and then it goes down to woodwinds, and it's quite massive. I perform everything that you're hearing by hand. So instead of going with pencil and paper and writing out the string tremolando or the piccolo runs I do it here virtually, so that it comes out as a simulation of what it will sound like with the orchestra. And so I'll play you a little bit of what it will sound like. This is all synthetic, and it sounds like this. And then this one ends.
Just like composers, every film director has a unique perspective on film music. And veteran John Debney has heard them all, having worked on blockbusters like Bruce Almighty, Elf.
How long do you think you'll be with us?
I was thinking like forever.
And both Princess Diaries movies.
It's interesting. I'll go from director to director. Let's say from Princess Diaries 2, which I just completed, to the film I'm working on now, which is called Christmas at the Cranks. Its other title is Skipping Christmas. It's a great book. And I love both directors. Gary Marshall has his way of doing things. Joe Roth has his way of doing things. Joe Roth wants very specific punctuations. And to him, it's like, well, of course, yeah, do that. And other directors, like a Gary Marshall, may not want that. There are no hard and fast rules.
Debney also got to stretch himself with one of the year's biggest hits, The Passion of the Christ, directed by Mel Gibson.
There were times when he wanted me to be more free than I've ever been, and other times when he wanted to be very, very careful and precise with each moment. It was very interesting. It's much different for me. That process with Mel was much different than most other directors that I've worked with. And yet ultimately I feel that Mel pulled out of me some of my best work.
Although he only has 2 released credits under his belt, the Denzel Washington drama John Q and this summer's sleeper hit The Notebook, composer Aaron Zigman has quickly become much in demand. Both of those films were directed by his good friend Nick Cassavetes.
He's very, very knowledgeable about music. So with a piece like The Notebook, well, we know what period we're in as far as the source stuff, but the turn of the century romantic. I mean, great classical music, great themes. He loves great themes, as I do. I like the melodies. It's one of the things about Nick is he's like calls himself a hook guy, and that's a very almost a pop iconic term, in a way, because that's what pop music's all about. Hooks. Well, that's what classical music's about too. Great themes, great melodies. John Q, there was a lot of ambient stuff going down. I know it was a very melodramatic movie, so, and there were a few very busy cues I had, certainly, but I did a lot of undercurrent stuff, vis-a-vis kind of Traffic-esque, you know, and when you say ambient, I think you have to bring that's a great score, and that score really was all about just letting the movie work.
I'm asked very often to provide music out of fear that something isn't playing right. I don't mind doing that. That's my job. I have to. I'd rather write the piece of music and then not use it than, you know, than not. Because you also don't want to get caught. And if, let's say, I convince a director to not put music in, all of a sudden they get on the dubbing stage, and there are other people now involved, then they're saying, well, why isn't there music here? So I would rather, and most times, I will give directors extra music or alternate takes under that heading.
I think The Notebook, Nick did an awesome job mixing that movie because he took, you know, the volumes down. He played numerous scenes dry where originally I'd written music in, and he cut them out and did the movie a big service by doing that because it lets you get into the story.
It's hard many times because I will very many times write what I think is the theme, and then the director doesn't think it's the theme, and he'll like the other theme. So sometimes it's kind of heartbreaking, but then you divorce yourself very quickly from that because I may still think that the theme was the right one, and maybe I'm right, but the point is, you know, it's collaborative. Film is a collaborative art.
You're dealing, like again, with those multiple personalities, but at the end of the day, you know, it's your director you're pleasing. He's the king. But when he's not there, I'm just writing them all by myself, and I'm the artist. So that's a nice feeling to have.
We do the best we can as artists within a very structured, sometimes confining business. But nonetheless, you can't give up, and I always tell these young composers, you have to develop yourself as an artist and do the very, very best you can, and hopefully that shines through.
Every movie with every style has a challenge, and there's beauty in everything. You can find, you know, if you're a good writer, I think anything you tackle, there's going to be something vibrant and emotional and connecting, whether it's comedy or action or drama in it. So I welcome anything coming my way.
Writing music for film, it's an art form. That's sort of my philosophy in a nutshell, and I think that's why certain of these wonderful men and women create this such high art that will live on, because, and again, especially guys like John Williams and Jerry Goldsmith, I think we'll be playing their music in 100 years. And that's an amazing tribute.
That's our show for this week. Thanks for watching Cine News. We leave you now with a look at Tom Hanks's upcoming holiday release, The Polar Express.
On Christmas Eve many years ago, I lay quietly in my bed. I did not rustle the sheets. I breathed slowly and silently. I was listening for a sound. Well, you coming?
Where?
Why, to the North Pole, of course.
This is the Polar Express.